Hello everyone, welcome to another P3D video. My name is Adam, and in today's video I'm going to show you how you can create dynamic lighting for any airport. This is off the back of my previous video for apron, taxiway and runway lighting, how I showed you how to implement it very easily. Somebody requested that I do for pole and spot lighting. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can do it. It's not as easy as doing the runway, taxiway and apron lighting, and there's many ways you can do it. But in this video, I'll show you how you can do it. Now, things you'll need to begin with is, and I'll put the link down below in the description box, MODELCONVERTERX and Airport Design Editor. Go download those if you haven't already got them, install them. Also go and download your SDK kit for the relevant sim you're in. This process will work for P3D versions, well, 3 to 5 or 6, I guess, or 3 to 5, because FSX and P3D versions 1 and 2 don't actually support dynamic lighting. In fact, version 3 doesn't really support dynamic lighting. Dynamic lighting first came into P3D on version 4, and volumetric dynamic lighting came in on version 5. Now, sadly, the tools for Airport Design Editor aren't available for version 6, so I'm not really sure how you'll be able to achieve that with this, but I do believe MODELCONVERTERX will still work with V6, so you can kind of still do it for V6. Now, why would you need to do dynamic lighting to an airport? Why doesn't it have it in already? Well, we're here at the airport, SKLM in South America by FLIGHTSIM. This is the FSX version of this airport. And as you can see, it's got lighting, it's got runway lighting, taxiway lighting, apron lighting. My plane is somewhere there in the darkness. And it's even got roads, which might be part of the scenery, or it could be my night lighting add-on installed. But this is for FSX. Now, FLIGHTSIM have updated this airport for P3D V5, and you can go and buy that on Sim Market. And that is what it looks like in terms of the night lighting. You can see that they actually have added dynamic night lighting, which is true because it is lighting these other models as it should be. So it is true dynamic lighting, whereas obviously the FSX one didn't come with that. Now, before I show you how to do this, I just want to talk really quickly about lighting in FSX, P3D, and even games, just so you have a full understanding of what we're about to do. So, this style of night lighting for FSX is basically like the PlayStation 2 style of creating lighting in a game, where it's texture baked. The effects of having lighting is actually in the texture. It's not exterior to the model and the texture. It's just baked in, you know, textures. So when it comes to nighttime, the relevant textures load to make it look like there is actually lit up areas within this scene. Even the floor here will have its own texture, and obviously, you know, this is not a non-default airport, so I doubt there's any default night lighting appearing in this sim, but there's nothing dynamic about this because it's all done in textures. It's not done real live in-game, you know, and it's handled by your CPU as well when it's done like this. So your CPU is binding these textures to the models and then calculating for, you know, anti-aliasing, and, you know, it can become quite frame heavy if there is a lot of textures loading in to a single area. The difference between doing it this way and the way V5 handles it is it's actual real light calculations that are handled by your GPU for reflections and shadows, and it's totally done through your GPU. So it kind of alleviates a little bit off your CPU, meaning that your frames can actually improve if you have true dynamic lighting. If you have a graphics card that is up to the job. But it doesn't affect any other planes or any other sim objects in the scene. So my plane over here is not a part of the airport, and therefore will not receive the information not only from, you know, this, but also if I was to do it like the V5 way, this plane would have to have PBR to be able to receive the lighting values from the airport itself. If it's not properly PBR'd, then the plane won't react with that light that is being displayed in the sim, even if it was true dynamic lighting. So I've redone the PBR on this plane from Carenado, the ATR, so it will receive dynamic lighting that is put into this scene and reflect off it. But as you can see, there is no light hitting this plane. I mean, mainly because there is no light over here, except maybe for the ground, which I don't really think you'll see the ground ones. Yeah, you don't see the ground ones reflecting off the fuselage, when really it kind of almost should be. Although, yeah, it is there at the back. It is reflecting off the back, and that's only because I've done the PBR for this plane. If you've got an aircraft that hasn't received proper PBR, even in V5, it won't react with any lighting. Obviously, the FSX style of lighting, it wouldn't react anyway with it because it's all texture based and not live in the sim. And that's the main difference between, like, say, this airport and then getting the V5 version, where this is actually true dynamic lighting. So my plane would react appropriately to this lighting. And I know what you're saying is, well, why don't you just go buy, you know, and get the upgrade and all that? Well, in all honesty, I don't actually see an upgrade, you know, thing on the Sim Market website. So it doesn't say if you've bought this previously, you'll get this for a $5 on this particular add-on. So, you know, right now it's only €9.60 if I wanted to go upgrade it. And the only difference is the night lighting. They haven't reworked the models, the textures, anything. They've just made it have dynamic lighting. So it's kind of a waste of a tenner, to be honest, if I did go and buy it, because at the end of the day, I can do this myself. Now, like I said, this will work in any airport, and it doesn't matter if it was installed as an XML or if it's inside the scenery library itself. This airport is an XML airport. So it's not installed, you know, in my scenery library, but like I said, it will work regardless, you know. Now, another way to achieve night lighting in P3D, not only to have, like I said, the textures will be baked in the night lighting will be baked into the textures, but the same can be said for the ground as well. It will have lighting that is baked in, and that is one way to add a fake, you know, dynamic lit area, but it's not going to react with all the other objects. So what do you need to do? Here we go. First off, you need to go and find your airport that it's installed in. So here I have my Sierra Sim SKLM, and these are all the BGLs that are a part of it. As you can see, there was no effects folder installed when I installed this onto my computer, because it didn't use any exterior effects. It's all baked in as part of the textures, which are all here. And you know, this is the nighttime one to make it look like it's been lit, and then you've got the daytime one which will show during the day. So first things first is go and find it. Now, like I said, there's a couple of ways in which dynamic lighting can be applied, and it really depends on the developer and how they've made their airport as to which way you're going to use it. It is totally possible to use the AFCAD of the airport and add dynamic lighting through the AFCAD. By placing models into the AFCAD and assigning light effects, and it uses the default assets of the sim or the SDK kit, and you can literally pop light poles which will show up in the sim and then assign an effect to it. Now the lighting effect is set. It's not, you can't change it because it's the effect files that are already in the sim, and if you do alter those values, it will alter it everywhere, and sometimes it might not look appropriate. So it's best to leave those as is, but in all honesty, it's probably not the best way to do this. But let's go, I'll show you how to do this. Obviously, you want to make sure that you're set here for whatever level of your slider it is. So if you set it to very sparse, as soon as you've activated very sparse slider in your, it will activate this. I always have my slider for complexity at extremely dense, no matter what aircraft or location I'm flying. So I always just set that to extremely dense. Another thing you want to do is make sure that there is no libraries assigned to this. If there are, you need to go to Tools, Library Object Manager, and open the folder that is where this airport is, because most likely they're going to be in this folder and they just haven't been picked up by the program. So you want to go and add that to there, and then select the scenery folder, and it will scan everything, and then once it finishes, you'll save that. And then if there is libraries where it says unknown, they might have a name now, and you've sorted that out. If there's nothing here, if it's blank, you don't have to worry about it. So the first thing you'll do is go to Tools, or if actually you can just literally right click on the area and click Add, and click Library Object. And what you want to do is type light, I guess, or you just want to search for a light pole. Now these are everything in the sim. Might even be Orbex libraries or libraries from another airport, but everything that is in your sim or on your PC will show up here. So you really want to try and use default only, and you can click stock and it will only now show you the stock things. But in all honesty, I don't mind sharing the assets around. So I don't, and to be honest, sometimes you won't get a preview of what it looks like. So it's kind of an experiment almost in seeing which one will look the best. And sometimes just even looking at the name will give you that. And really what we want is, here we go, a light pole. So luckily Orbex have done by country, and we're in South America. So I'm going to guess SCO could be the one. That's Scotland, sorry, so it's not. So US, probably. You've got Netherlands, IT, I don't know what that is. IE is Ireland, that's the Great Britain. True Earth ones probably would work better because they were more recently made. But you've got Australia. I don't know what BE is. Or CA is California. EU is Europe. FR must be French, I don't know. We're going to go with US at the end of the day. So you click Add, and this is your light pole here. Doesn't give you an idea of what it is, but that's basically, or this is your light pole, sorry, here. Now that dot is the orientation for where it will be shining, and you want the dot pointing in the direction. Oop, dear, don't want to move the apron there. You want the let me just click undo there, so I put the apron back to where it was. You want the dot pointing in the direction. Oh, why does it keep clicking on that? You want that pointing in the direction you want the light to be casting in. So this is a animated with pole. This is a a light pole. It says flat. Oh yeah. So if you double click it, these are all your options. And you can, the scale, the pitch, and the bank of it. You make sure that the altitude is AGL ticked, and image complexity, like I said, I always just click extremely dense. Unless you have extremely dense in your sliders, it won't actually show or activate. So if you do have it set to normal and you use sparse, it won't show in the sim. So, but I never change the level of this, so I just set it to that. Don't really need to worry about these flags here, but click OK, and now that pole will show once you compile this BGL, which you won't be able to do whilst you're in the sim, and it looks like it'll show up somewhere around here. Now we need to add the effect to it, so now we want to right click, add effect, and now we can actually choose which kind of light it will be. I'm probably thinking try and find an Orbex one, because that will work best with Orbex. And again, it's total guesswork with this way. This is kind of the easiest way though, because there's not much you have to guess. But and I can't see what that says. A lot of these could be sounds as well, but they're all effects files. So probably Spotlight might be the best. I would also recommend trying to, when you're actually putting the effect light in, is to use, you know, the stock ones if you can, because you know that they're going to work and be compatible with the sim. Whereas if you use third-party ones, they might have done it a little bit loopy or not correct, and then it won't show. And you'll know when it is the normal sort of one, because it won't be in capital letters. So total guesswork again, isn't it? Let's go with B5 Spotlight. And again, we could change the pitch if we wanted to, but we don't know which way it's going to be turning or anything like that. Oh, there we go. So we want that to turn around, and now that will be the actual light coming down. And double clicking on that, you can, you know, change a couple of parameters of it. Definitely make sure altitude is AGL, because that will ensure that this sits at the same altitude as whatever surface it's sitting on. If you untick that, you then have to put the altitude down here. But I think that'll do me, to be honest. I'm not really I'm not even sure what that will look like. So let me exit out of the sim, and I can then compile this. This will pause until the sim completely shuts down, and when it's finished completely unpausing, we can then compile it. Way to compile it basically is get your folder where the BGL is. I recommend backing up the airport as well. Just pop a copy of this, and if there is a CVX file or an object file, copy that and just place it outside of the folder here, because when you save it, some of these might disappear. So there we go. Now we can go and click on the address for that, Control and C to copy it, and go to File, Compile, Open Folder, and then pop in the address, Control and V, and enter, and it takes us straight there. And then you're just looking for that file here. Click on it to rewrite the name so it's got the same name, save and overwrite, and compile. Now, as it compiled then, it actually deleted the object file below it, which we want to keep in, so I need to copy that back into my sim now. Otherwise, things won't show up properly. So now we've added that one little file. Now, that's one way of doing it. It's not the best way, because you're relying on preset lighting effects, where the strength and the radius and the reach of the light has already been determined in a control file in the effects folder of the sim, and really you don't want to change that because it will change it for every single add-on that uses that effect file, that control file. There is a better way to have total control, but it's a little bit more fiddly, and it really depends on how they've added this here. So if I look here, there is a library airport effects which may contain a light pole. Yes, it does. So this is the light pole that this developer has added as a separate BGL. So this is just the one instance of it. There's no more here. But then this can be placed multiple times in multiple locations. Now, if you're using MODELCONVERTERX, you need to go to Options. You need to go to Importer Settings, and you need to make sure Replace Effects by Lights is set to True. By default, this will be false, and if you leave it at false, you won't be able to re-edit anything after the fact. So that is really important. Make sure that your pathways to your BGL is correct using the current one you're using. So where it says 4.4, we're using version 5, and that matches the sim that I have. You want to make sure that all of these are set correctly, and yeah, make sure that is true. Otherwise you will not be able to edit after the fact. Another thing you want to do is when you come in is make sure that this paperclip icon here is selected, got a box around it, and the same with this show spotlights. Make sure that is selected, and sometimes you might see weird things sticking out if it hasn't been applied already. This doesn't have any because we've not done it. So the way to do it is go to the attached object editor here, click it, and you'll get this pop-up come up, and then go to add, and you want to click light, and then where it says type of light, you want to change that point to spot. Now this will place in the sim, or sorry, in this editor preview here, this spotlight, and this is the beam of light, all these lines here, and basically you need to orientate it to come out of the top. It's not a click and drag situation. The position here is the axes of X, Y, and Z for how you position it. So it doesn't tell you which one is X, which one is Y, and which one is Z, so it's total guesswork. But I recommend, to get to know the controls, is only move it, keep this in view, and only move it by 5, and see when you click off it which way it goes. So that moves to the left, so that is your horizontal axis, which we're going to put back to 0 because it was already on the object itself. So put that back to 0, and we need to move it up. So what does the middle one do? Put 5 there. That moves it forward. So to be honest, probably might need it moved forward, but not as much by there. So let's try 3 just to get it underneath. That's probably underneath, so we'll leave that. So this one must be moving it up and down. So if we click 5, it moves it up. Brilliant. Now we're cooking on gas. And once you get to know which one of these is, it will become a lot easier. But when you first start doing it, it is touch and go. So here we go. We've got it pretty much spot on, I feel. You can tweak this as much as you want, but it doesn't have to be exact. You're not actually going to see, like, if I left this now, obviously that's the bulb and it's pointing down. So if I left this as is, it's not going to look weird, because at the end of the day, these probably aren't even on the airport terminal. Now, obviously I do want it rotated down a little bit. So the rotation now is how you do that. So if you need it pointing up, you'll add a value there and it will rotate it up. But we want it pointing down, so you want to add a minus so it goes down. Probably a bit more than that. Add a 2 to make it -20. That'll do. That doesn't have to be exact. Now, other rotations will either, you know, make it go in other ways. I'm not really sure what effect that had by adding a 10. But like I said, it's trial and error. I wish the controls were better, but it is what it is, you know. But the fact that you have these controls is pretty cool. So, I mean, I don't know what that's doing, so we'll just remove that. Now, the other thing here you can do is change the color. Now, we're going to give this, because I quite like the old, what are they called? The type of night lightings where it's aqua and bluey. I like those colors. So I kind of feel that that color will be pretty cool effects to see. But you can choose any color you want. Obviously, if you want to go for realism, probably choose a white or a yellow. But I quite like those old mercury. That's the word I'm looking for. Those old mercury lights where it's a little bit, you know, that'll look cool from the nighttime. Now, you don't have to worry about flash because it's not going to pulse. But if you wanted it to, you could do that. Show during day, probably don't want to tick that because it means the dynamic lighting is active day or night. And obviously they wouldn't turn the lights on during the day unless you're in like Antarctica and you do need that. But to be honest, we're just going to leave that false. Down here, you want to leave fall off exponent to 2. And the inner and outer cone, you can alter these if you want to make them either more thinner or spread out. So the outer cone, if you look at it, it looks pretty much pretty wide a field. But for the purposes of this video, I will change the outer cone to 75 just so you can see how much it changes. Maybe that's a bit too much, but maybe bring that in a bit, mate. That's just going to go mental. So 55 on the outer, and that will separate the cast from that beam. Now the range, this is done in, I'm not really sure if it's done in centimeters or meters or what, but that's only going to create a small spotlight just in front of that, which may be realistic, but it won't light up the apron. So we're going to change that figure to an 8. And so the reach now goes a lot further. That might look extreme, but trust me, it ain't that extreme when you get into the sim. But that will light up the entire apron pretty nicely, to be honest. Well, actually, no, it's not the apron. What am I saying? This is actually wherever these poles are. This could be on the road that's next to the apron. This might not even be the apron itself. So maybe that's a bit too much. Yeah, maybe we'll probably put that back down to 3 because otherwise that will look very strange. Now, if you need it stronger, you can. I don't really recommend moving that above 150. But if you do want it brighter, then you would use the strength here. But just remember, the stronger the lights, the more effect that will have on your aircraft when you're on the apron. And it may look nuclear, you know, when you're on the apron inside your flight deck and that strong light is beaming through. I suggest 100 or 150. And that's basically it. That's how we've added this. So you click X and now you've added the dynamic lighting to this single pole. If we untick the paperclip and the show spotlights, that's what it will have. So if you load in to edit this and you see these, it means that that effect has already been applied. And to edit it, all you have to do is go to attached object editor, and if you've clicked true on that, you can re-edit what's been done. Now go to export scenery and you want to save this, which is this file here, which I recommend backing up before you save it, because if you've made a mistake or you don't like the effect, you can come back in and edit it or start again. We're going to click save and yes, and now that is compiling this light and doing the business. And when it's finished, when that yellow box is gone, we can come out of this. Finished, yellow box is gone, goodbye. Now that, like I said, is only the poles that are in that scenery. They might not even be anywhere near the apron. So how do we know what we're affecting on the apron? Now this is where you come into, you know, guesswork basically. So here you got SKM lights, opening that up in MODELCONVERTERX. What does that do? Sometimes they might just be placement files. If this ever comes up, just click set. You'll find that with FSX things. It's just so you can alter like certain things, but leave it at default. So I don't see anything here. I don't know what this is. This could be the lights on the floor, but I don't actually. Oh, what's that? There is something there. It's far down though. What is that? I don't know what that is, but yeah, that's not the file we're looking for. And you just go through them, to be honest. Like if you wanted to look at the grass, maybe you wanted a little strip of lights in with the grass, you could place that in to have a cool grass effect. But I don't want that. I don't know what blue, S-green blue, I think they're the taxi lights, most likely. Yep, that's the taxi light, so we don't want to change that because that looked fine. What's this one here? Like I said, trial and error, you know. If you don't like the effect, you just go back and change it. Don't know what the hell that is. What is that? Oh, it's shrubs, but it failed to load the texture. Why? Why did it fail to load the texture? Let's go into the texture folder. Why did it fail? And what is the name? SIMDE shrubs. SIMDE. Oh. Well, that doesn't even exist in this. That's probably why it failed to load it. Why did it not exist in here? Luckily, I kept the installation files. So this is where I installed it to, and I've kept the installation. So it could be that the developer just simply forgot to put them in. So SIMD. Yeah, it looks. Oh, shrubs. Here you go. So it could be these two files, but they're not SIMDE. SIMDE shrubs. This one's just shrubs01. Let's click on that and see. So it is actually SIMDE shrubs. So SIMDE and then shrubs, but I'm not seeing that here. I think the developer it's meant to be this one. I think they screwed up. I think this was a mistake by the developer. So this is the file that it's the shrub BMP is, and there is shrubs and a light map, but I don't see the SIMDE shrubs. So I think this is a mistake, which I can rectify right now. So we're going to take that and we're going to copy it into this here, paste that in, and then do the same for this one, which I could be wrong, by the way. This might not be the intention, but either the developer forgot to put these shrubs in, because I don't actually see them. There's no file here with the name that it's pointing to, or he had problems with it and decided purposely to leave it out. But now that I've done this, it's actually loaded the textures in. So, hey, click apply, and now we have the textures of the shrubs. I don't know why he took that off, but yeah. Now we got to export this, and because it is the same name, we just click save, and now that will load in. It might be the fact that he placed these in the wrong place and decided, rather than delete the file, just to unbind it to the thing. I don't know what happened there. So let's go. And so we were on that one. I don't know what these objects are. Let's open these up. Sorry, you know, this is what it's like though. It's trial and error. Sometimes you'll find a placement file. So it'll say however many placements and nothing will load, and that's because it's a placement file. So all of them are placement files. That's a PAPI. We don't want to change that. I don't know what this is. I don't even think that is the airport file. That's gonna, because that's the airport file. So what's this PGL? So this is what I mean. That, yeah, it's not the AD. It's not an airport file. I don't know what that is. There's so many different ways to make an airport, and developers do all sorts differently. Yeah, there's nothing in this file. It's just like a dumb file or something. I don't know. There's airport objects here. This is probably cars and trucks, perhaps. No, it's a placement file. Blue, that's probably the lighting. That's probably another placement file. Yep, it's all the lights, which means that that's for the cars. That's the others. That's the others. Post. That's probably the placement file for those lampposts. Terminal. This probably is the airport buildings themselves. Looks like it. Yep, bingo. This is the one we want. Now, unfortunately, if you scroll out, this is what's classed as the center of the airport. So the buildings are obviously off to the side. But whenever we do this adding in an object and we want to add the spotlights, it always adds it to the center of the airport. So when we click onto spots and we go in, it's added it to the center of the airport. So now we've got to shimmy it across over here, and again it's total guesswork. So I think this one went left and right, so we don't want to do that. That went forward and backwards, so to go backwards it's going to be a minus. Let's try 200 and see where that sits us. Oh, that sits us over there. Oh, it's on the right axis, so we do need to go left to right now. So I guess to go right it's going to be minus. Let's try 20. Yep, that is correct, but it's not far enough, so we'll try 200. Oh, it's coming in. It's coming in. Probably, and to be honest, what we want to do is decide where it's going to be. Now, we did put a light pole here, so I think I'll put it on the other side so we can clearly see the difference, to be honest, because otherwise it will look a bit, you know, you won't see the distinction between doing it in the AFCAD or doing it this way. But this is the best bit about this process. It's totally up to you how you want to do this. You can be as artistic or as realistic as you want. You can have LED, you know, things going on, disco ball lights flashing all over the place. It's up to you. You're the master creator. So once you get to know what these numbers mean in terms of the axis, it will become a lot easier. Probably a bit too much that. So let's try 290. Yeah, I guess that'll do. Maybe a little bit more, 285. And obviously the height we need to sort out. Yeah, that'll do. So, oh, it's actually behind the building, so it does actually need to go forward a little bit. So let's, I think that was the forward control. Let's try 190 on that. Yep. Oh, it actually needs to go back a little bit. So that'll be 195. And then obviously we need to do the height. Oh, that's in the building, so that's no good. Ah, tricky, tricky. 197. Very specific. No, that's going the other way. So that'd be 193 then instead. Now, this process totally depends on the CPU capability of your PC. If you've got a potato PC, this might be a bit more harder to do. We need it to go up as well, so I think that was the height one. Let's set it to 10 and see what happens. That's too high. let's set it to half of that. Oop. Let's move the... yeah, that'll do. That's believable. Probably if I was doing this for reals, I'd put that a little bit more forward, but you know what? That will be fine. Now, again, just to distinguish between the other light we placed in, we're gonna choose, actually that was a road one. Oh no, in the AFCAD, and I don't know what color that would be. So we're gonna turn this one into what kind of lights? Yellow? Green? We could just leave it white, but I kind of feel like I want to see something. And this, obviously, if you use the darker colors, it will be darker. Let's try red. Whoa! Just so you'll see the difference. Obviously, if you want to come in and edit this after the fact to make it whatever, you can. So that's, I think, fine. But as you can see, the apron went as far as this bush here. So the range does need to be increased to about 75, I reckon. Now, obviously, you would do for realism, and I don't think any bulb this strong would actually have that kind of range. I'm actually going to turn that to 100 because I think it might be too strong, and I think I'll have that at 100 as well. These values you can actually edit once you're in the file as well. Once you've created the effect file, you can edit within the file itself, save you opening this back up. And obviously we probably want it pointing down a little bit. God, probably want it pointing down a little bit. So the rotation, I think it was this one. Let's do -10. Let's see what happens. There we go. Now, the difference between this inner cone and the outer cone is obviously the color. This is going to be red, and this is going to be half the opacity of whatever your inner cone is, and is going to be like almost the edge glow around the core glow. So really, you want to be looking at the middle and seeing how that's going to affect the scene. Remembering that the ground is here, and so none of this is going to get seen. It's just going to be this. So this is going to be a very strong light, I will say that. Because if the ground is coming out here, and a lot of these, you know, it's going to be more intense here and less intense out here. So the majority of the intensity is actually about here. So it will have a nice spread, I feel. But yeah, I think that will do, to be honest. Don't need to worry about anything else. So we will save this now. Export and save. And now that is compiling. And it's compiled. And just for kicks, I think that's not going to allow me to open a model in there. Yeah, it's an empty object. It's the ground terrain. Ooh. See, this is where you could get really artistic, because I could also place lighting on this part here to illuminate, to, you know, boost or, you know, make it a little bit stronger in other areas, like, or place little spotlights to help fill in some color, or even point lights pointing up at the building so they're lit now properly dynamic and not relying on that texture baked in shit that basically isn't actually affecting anything. Like, you can place spotlights anywhere, really. This is pretty cool that we've got this in here. Like, if I wanted to place lampposts in going down here, I could. And, you know, at the end of the day, you can do what you want. Now, what do? First off, these two files are your effect files. Now, there is something else you need to do, because if you just put these either in the effect folder for the XML add-on or in the root of your sim, it will show up and everything will look fine. But when you fly to the airport from another location, the lighting might not load in. And the way you fix that is open up your FX file here in Visual Studio Code. Do not use Notepad. Okay, now this is one I made earlier, and you basically need to copy this code, intensity daytime and intensity nighttime, especially if you use my enhancement pack, and you need to pop this in to this one, which won't have it. Control V and file and save, and that has to be done for both of these files that you've created. If you don't put this in, you may not see the night lighting when you fly to the location. Now this is where you can change the attributes rather than booting up. Like if I wanted to change the color, you know, or certain, you know, things, obviously you would have to know the color code. And, you know, if I wanted to change the angle of the cone, or maybe the rate of how much it's going to go out, I can do that within here if I know what I'm doing. If you don't know what you're doing, open up MODELCONVERTERX, because, you know, you don't want to mess up. Now, what you're meant to do is take these and open up your effects folder for your sim and just pop them in. I recommend copy and pasting, because if you go back and edit, obviously this is today's date, but, you know, there's so many effects files in here. There's over 4,000, and to find them based off the name is going to be a nightmare. But click date modified and they come straight to the top. But if you edit these assets, and it will create new effect files. So I recommend keeping a copy of your original ones outside of the scenery folder here. So if you do create any new ones, you'll know exactly which ones they are, and then replacing, if you do create changes, delete these and replace them with the new ones. If you have both of them in, they will both be active when you load in, and that could be overkill. So you've really got to keep on top of this. So now we're going to open the sim up and see what's happened. Okay, so we're back in the sim now, and as you can see, the red light, heavily exaggerated, actually affects the plane's surfaces now. And that's, like I said, because it's been properly PBR'd. And as you can see, the reach of the covers the entire apron and falls off and is intense just like it should be. Now, like I said, I did this for the illustrations of this video. You can be more realistic and be as artistic and creative as you want. So that's basically that way of doing it, where you add the lights. Now, it only adds the effect in the sim. It doesn't add a pole. Like, as you can see, we just see a beam of light being generated. So ideally, what I'd want to do now is go into the AFCAD and place a light pole in front of this building at this exact spot, probably, you know, in line with, you know, that window. So it looks like that this light effect is being beamed off from something, because otherwise it just looks like it's coming out of nowhere. Now, if we head over to those poles that we put in, they were kind of awkward. Yeah, there they are. So there's one. So this is the light pole that we put, you know, the light that we put in from the light pole. Not very strong, not as turquoise as I thought it'd be, but I guess, yeah, they're on the outside of they're on the road side. So these are like road lights, and we know that there's 16 of them because it said that there were 16 in the AFCAD or in the placement file, and I'm guessing that this is one of them as well. So that's that way of doing it as well. And this is the one from Orbex that we put in. I guess not as tall as I thought it'd be, but as you can see, it is illuminating a light as well coming off it, but not as massively, you know, brilliant as the other one. The Orbex light, which as you can see has got kind of another texture interfering with it, is preset, so you can't change the values of this, of the strength and all that. It's because it's preset in a control file, and that control file is in your effects folder, and it'll be one of these FX ones. You have to go find it, and if you do change it to make it brighter in this scene, wherever this light and this effect is being used, it will be different in that scene, and it just may not look good. So using the AFCAD way of adding lights, I reserve just for light poles and don't actually put the effect in, because as you can see, it's not very strong. It might be realistic, but it's just kind of meh, and it doesn't give you the control of actually adding a true light effect in the sim does. Which, to be honest, I think this is pretty cool. I think I might keep this blood red, you know. But it can be any color you want, it can be any strength you want, and it can have as much reach, and it'll fall off naturally as well, so it gets dimmer to a certain point, so you can light up as little or as much of the apron as you want. Now, like I said, because it's affecting the plane, when we go into the flight deck, it also is affected realistically. So it's like, yeah, now it looks like we're in a submarine. So you may not like this, I do, but obviously it's only while we're parked here opposite that light. And as long as you've put that extra code in the effects files, this will load as you're flying in. It's highly recommended that you do it as part of a XML, because they are loaded as a package file separate from the sim. But sometimes, like, I don't know, sometimes it's a little bit funny. This will work regardless of if you've popped the effect files in the root of the sim, or if you've had to make a folder called effects and put the code into the XML file because it didn't contain that. Either way, it should work, but it totally depends on the settings you have. You have to have dynamic lighting ticked and reflections to a certain level, otherwise it won't work, and your shadows must be cast and receive for vehicle, simulation objects and buildings. If you don't have cast and receive for that, things will not work correctly. So there you go. Now, I did say there was another way, and it's kind of the skank way, to be honest, and it's the way like Ini builds do it and a lot of developers do it, and it's unnecessary if you do it this way, and that is to have a texture file. So here is the texture of the, well, half of the runway, but it has the apron. This is the day texture. The nighttime texture is this one. So this is what's loading into the sim right now with baked in night lighting. Now, if you get this IFRAN view, you can actually go to color corrections and you can alter how this looks. So first off, you can increase a little bit of the gamma to make it in line with the P3D, you know, 5 sim. You can increase the saturation to make the color of on the, you know, texture more vibrant, and increase the contrast a little bit. But you can also add a little bit of red, green or blue depending on what you want. At nighttime, I would say blue is your best bet because the moon will cast that kind of bluey hue. Obviously add too much and you're completely nuking everything. It's a very minor change here, so just a little bit of a moon tint, and then the contrast to either make it more bluey or less bluey. And as you can see, it's altered the color of the texture of the light on the texture, so it's a little bit more bolder and a bit stronger. And if you click OK on that and then save this as a PNG file into videos, click save. This will now appear in videos if we go there now. Right, open it up. Sorry, find the file and then open with the DXT1 bitmap manipulator. That's in my Discord if you need it. You then can save this, and you can add sharpening or whatever you want. You can then save it as a DXT5 DDS. And just for the purposes of this video, I'll only do this one so you can see the difference. So I'm going to copy that as it's the original. And then we're going to take the DDS version, delete the PNG one, cut that into the texture folder, and overwrite the original. Continue. Now, I'm not really sure it's going to work when you're in the sim. I think you have to reload because it has to reload the texture. But we can force the sim to where was it gone? We can ask the sim to reload the textures. So if we position our camera so where we can see here, this is what it looks like right now, you know. So if I reload the objects, it should now reload that texture. Okay, so as you can see, it's made a massive difference to the entire scenery. But this is basically another way that you can add fake dynamic lighting. It's the way AnyBuilds did theirs with the dynamic lighting fixes that they offered out. But as you can see, it's yeah, I mean, it's a way of doing it, but I wouldn't say it's the best way of doing it, you know. I would say the best way is my way that I showed before. Also, I want to see where all this grass is that where's all this grass that we fixed? Is it this stuff down here? Because it kind of seemed to be shrubs. Like, I don't see any shrubs lying around. Maybe it's all this stuff here. Yeah. I can't remember if I remember seeing this anyway, to be honest. Maybe that was just an old file that they put in. But yeah, everything looks fine. Everything looks fine. But yeah, doing it where you're changing the texturing, you've got to be very careful with the... I mean, you can make it whatever color you want, but... And it kind of does give it a moon glow to it. But then I have to do the other texture to the other one exactly in the same way. And it's like, do you know what? I'm all right. I don't actually like using light maps anyway, to be honest. So they're not needed, you know, because as you can see, we still have light down here, regardless of the light map. If we change the light map back to the way it was, it still would look the same in terms of the lighting. That's how the old style way of, you know, adding dynamic looking lighting is. And to be honest, it's unnecessary. You don't need now to load this light map in of the whole area, because it will work fine with the daytime one and with the actual dynamic lighting. Like, I've noticed now that my frames are in the 50s, whereas before they were between 30 and 40. Like, I've actually gotten more frames for using this process. I actually quite like the fact that this light pole here is all right, actually. So there is a way I could use this light pole and place it over here to simulate this one. But in all honesty, I ain't that bothered. Like, you don't really see light poles at night, so I ain't bothered the fact that I don't see a light pole in the sim. So I'm just going to leave that. And I'm going to leave the way it looks here like this. I've moved my plane a bit further back, so you can still see it reflecting off the surfaces, but it's not all encompassing. And actually this is the correct parking spot for this plane. But obviously the closer we move to that light, the more it will affect the fuselage. Whereas right now it seems to only be affecting the specular highlights almost, as well as that other light that we put in from Orbex. And obviously if we hop inside the flight deck, it's absolutely fine. That is how you add dynamic lighting truly to an airport. You can do it one of 3 ways. I don't like the last way I showed you with the baked in textures. It's an unnecessary, thing to do. I much prefer the other way of doing it. Even adding it in the AFCAD file, with this one here, which actually now we can see a bit more of a difference because it doesn't look as strong, this light, now that we have a look at it properly. So that night map texture change has made an effect. Or actually no, it does look a bit stronger. But yeah, even adding it in the AFCAD, it's not, you haven't got a lot of choices, and you don't know what you're doing until you jump in the sim to see. I much prefer this way of doing it, where you have so much control, so much choice, and you'll get exactly what you want. Anyway, if you got any questions, please let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.